Hey there, internet friend, it's Jason from Drink the Paint Water, and I've got a really fun project today. I'm going to take this masterpiece from 6-year-old Owen Combs, and I'm going to put my own little crazy spin on it.
Okay, so usually how I prep for these drawings is that I will take my iPad Pro and the Procreate drawing program, and I will do that little blue line sketch digitally, and then I'll transfer it over to Photoshop on my Mac, on my desktop computer, and we'll then print that out, kind of clean it up a little bit, print it out in blue lines on watercolor paper, and then tape that down to a board and begin the inking process on it. So it's kind of a combination of digital and traditional is where I'm at most of the times right now. I think it's a fun way to do it. I like sketching in Procreate because you can resize things, rotate things, work on layers, erase easily and not worry about leaving marks or roughing up the paper. And it's just a really great process that works for me for what I'm doing right now. So then after I've got that all printed out, I'm coming in with some black India ink and just a liner brush there. I use Dr. P.H. Martin's black India ink. You can find it on Amazon or at pretty much any art supply store. It's a very common brand and not all that expensive at all. I enjoy it because it dries matte and is waterproof, water resistant. You know, when it dries, it's not going to reactivate after, if you go over it with more water after it's dried. It's just going to stay nice and black. And you'll see that later when I color in this drawing. So I go around and do kind of the outline first in a varying brush stroke. This is the one thing I like about drawing with a brush, is that you can get a thin line or a thick line just by how much pressure you put on the paper or what angle you're holding the brush at. And so for blocking in these big spaces, I enjoy using a liner brush, and later on I'll come on with a finer brush to get more of the detailed area. So I've done a pretty good job here blocking in the major ink lines. I'm going to come in now with a micron pen and just get in all this cross-hatching. It's kind of maddening because I'll eventually have to do this again after I color it. But for this project, I needed both a black and white version that was a finished version and then a colored version over that. So when I finished this black and white version, I scanned it and sent it off to the client, and then came back and colored it just for fun. The client needed a black and white version, and I just couldn't, based on Owen's very colorful purple chungus down there in the corner. We can't say beholder for copyright reasons. It's a chungus. From the very popular monster from Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah, so I thought, well, it's got to be colored. So once I was done with this black and white, I wanted to make a color version. Now, this entire project was the brainchild of Levi Combs over at Planet X Games. He is just, on top of being a nice guy, he's just incredibly imaginative and prolific. He puts out so much content for Dungeons and Dragons and for Dungeon Crawl Classics, system agnostic materials just for tabletop role-playing games. This is an upcoming project for his, in which he asked me to recreate his son Owen's chungus over there, and I was thrilled to take it on. So hopefully that will see the light of day pretty soon. So after I got done drawing those lines, I come in with one of my favorite parts of the process is ink wash. And that's that same Dr. P.H. Martin's black India ink that I had before, just diluted with some water. And I come in and make, layer by layer by layer, build up those blacks. You can see right here, it goes on very dark, but then as it dries, it lightens up. And you can see it just by the magic of time-lapse. These are all taken at about 10 times speed. How it normally takes me to draw these. It lightens up nicely, so you just have to kind of have faith that your very, very dark ink is not going to be very dark. If you want it dark, you just kind of build it up gradually. So after that ink wash dried, I went back in with another pen to just pull in some more of those crosshatch details. I scanned that and sent it off to my friend Levi for his purposes. But then I thought, okay, we got to make this guy purple. Now, first off, I apologize for the quality of this section of the video. I got lazy. I'm going to just I'm just gonna level with you. I didn't want to hook up my good camera, and so I had my original camera. If you go back to look at my first videos on this channel, the camera quality was not all that hot, and I eventually invested in a great camera that I very much love. I invested in the Sony ZV-E10, which is like the introductory level vlogger camera, but it's perfect for what I need. It's what I shoot all of my top-down videos with, for obvious reasons. But this is just like a 4K camcorder, and I thought it was in focus, and it absolutely was not in focus. So that's my bad. So I'm really disappointed, because obviously this is a living document, and I can't unpaint this this drawing. But that's okay. That's on me. I promise that it gets better later on in the video. I switch over to the good camera, and we're back in action. But this will give you the basic idea of my color theory. So I want this to be purple. So I painted the entire thing blue first to just get that kind of undertone in there. Most of us probably know that blue and red make purple, right? So I'll go in there later with a little bit of red, and that will build up a more vibrant purple than if I just use purple off of the tray. These paints I'm using are just a cheap tray of dry gouache, which kind of looks like watercolor, like the watercolor you might have used in school. You just activate it with water, and gouache is nice because it can be transparent like watercolor, but also if you get a lot of pigment on there, it can be a little bit more opaque. So it's a very versatile and fun to use medium, and I really enjoy it for coloring in illustrations like this one. So now, as you can see, I've got some red on the brush, and I've gone in and done that big old chungus eyeball. One of the most engaging things about Owen's original drawing is that big eyeball is just it's just red. So I wanted to retain that kind of feel with that giant red eyeball and that big old hunk and V-shaped eyebrow, which was just a great part of his original drawing. So now I've got red on this brush, and as you can see, it's filling in the purple. So the red and the blue are making purple, and it's just a nice vibrant color. I could have just used purple straight off of the tray, and I do a little bit in a little while use a little bit of the purple, but that's because I have that kind of base color down, and I can leave the blue showing through in some areas just to make it vibrant and rich. Now, a few months ago at Gamehole Con 2023 in Madison, Wisconsin, I was fortunate enough to take a workshop with a colored pencil artist named Charles Urbach, who's just fantastic. And the major takeaway I got from that was that if you do a black and white, like an ink wash version first, and then color over that, it just gives a vibrancy and life to your shadows. So I did that in this process, and really happy with how it turned out. So now we're back to the good camera, and I'm just popping in some highlights there on the edges of the beast, as well as the reflections in the eyeballs there, just to make it pop out a little bit. That is, again, India ink, but that is Dr. P.H. Martin's white. It's picking up a little bit. I think my palette was pretty dirty, so it's not going on as white as I would like in that eyeball there. So I have to let that dry and then come back and do a couple layers on it. Now I've picked up some red, but this is with a very small brush, just some red gouache off of that same tray. And I'm coming in and just popping out kind of the red in the pits of the eyes there, and accentuating some shadows. And again, that's just red going over that purple, makes a really nice dark shadow. Get the Visine out, right? For these crazy spots and the bloodshot eyes and everything. It's all about the little details that you put into these illustrations, really help kind of give it personality and tell the story. And so now that all the color's in, I'm going back to the Dr. P.H. Martin's black India ink, and basically redrawing most of those original lines from the original black and white drawing, just because the gouache is, like I said, a little bit opaque, and where it goes over the original outlines, they can get washed out You can see the color over the black lines. So I like to come in then once I'm done with the color and just put a little bit more variety into the outlines. And also, but do that with the pens too a little bit. They sometimes might gunk up a bit with the texture of the gouache. It's kind of powdery a little bit after it dries sometimes. So I try to keep that minimal with the pens, but using this tiny little liner brush just works a treat. This entire thing is 8 inches by 10 inches on watercolor paper. I think probably Canson brand. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I gotta be honest that it's early yet into 2024, but this is probably my favorite thing that I've painted all year so far.
So, how do you think it went? If you like content like this, jump on over to this next video, personally hand-picked for you by the YubTub algorithm overlords. Alright, see you there.